Hello, folks, and welcome to Got Your Back. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Mr. Dirk. Oilers with a tough loss on home ice, a game that they definitely were not happy with. Just finished up in the room not too long ago chatting with some of the guys. Definitely not happy with their overall effort. Didn't like their 5-on-5 play. And lots to break down on tonight's podcast. We got a great one for you, by the way. Jason Strudwick standing by, but also special guest analyst tonight, Craig Mactavish. Mac T going to break down the game with Struds and I. Of course, as always, Got Your Back is brought to you by Mr. Dirk, located just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. It is your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs. If you're a businessman, you want to sharpen up that look at your next meeting, or if you just need a nice fresh suit, they're a fantastic place to go. They can help you make that statement that you are on top of your game. They got lots of great casual clothing as well. Jeans, pants, shirts, sweaters. They're helping Struddy look better on a daily basis. That is Mr. Dirk, just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. As we say, good evening to the guys. Struddy, it looks like you've been moved up to the living room, and Mac T in California. How are you, Mac?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the Got Your Back podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, much appreciated. Struds, what happened to you? Where's the office? How did you got booted out of your own office?
Yeah, I'm in my sewing room now. This is where I do all my sewing and design my own clothing line. I have my sister-in-law in town, and so she is kind of the guest bedroom is kind of attached to my office. So Struddy's out the door and into the sewing room.
That's a highly floral pattern you got going on there, bud. Very
Yeah. So it's not my normal setup, but I think people appreciate the light and the joy it brings behind us, considering what we saw from the Mighty Oilers tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. And Mac T, how are you doing? How you're keeping yourself busy, getting some rounds of golf in, and enjoying the fruits of your labor?
I have been. Yeah, it's pretty hard to screw this up down here in California for the month, but we're having a little bit of fun. It's been nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And obviously following the Oilers as much as I can here. It's been quite a run so far. I was there for most of it last year.
Yeah.
Living across the street at Legends, and I mean it's such a phenomenal time of year for Oiler fans in the city. It's just I love it. I miss not being there for it, but I'm making do down here in the sunshine.
struggling through the heat.
Bit of a letdown for Oiler fans tonight, though. First of all, it's raining, so they couldn't get together and have the big raucous party outside. And then what went down on the ice definitely was a letdown as well. So, guys, let's get to our breakdown. That'll be brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. They supply some of the nicest maintenance-free fencing and decking products out there. If you've got that wood fence or deck in your backyard and you want to change it up, you're sick of staining or painting, sanding, go with Maintenance Free. This is my brother's company. They got locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. That's DLR Vinyl Products. Okay, Mac, you know what? I'll open it up to you to give us your analysis of kind of what happened in the big picture to the Oilers tonight, and in particular, their 5-on-5 game, which was most of the night tonight.
Well, it was premature to count the series over after Game 2, as much as we all jumped to that conclusion after the Oilers, were challenged after Game 1 and had a great response in Game 2, and really played as solid a game as I've seen the Oilers play in many, many years, top to bottom. Mm-hmm. And listening to Gretz between periods, he talked about the same thing that Mess talked about tonight between periods, and that is the importance of being able to defend in the playoffs. And in Game 2 in Las Vegas, the Oilers were amazing in their ability to defend, and as we've talked about many times, the ability to defend is going to spawn offensive opportunity, and nobody capitalizes better on those chances than the Oilers. So I was feeling, really positive going into the game tonight, and the scenario flipped 180 degrees, and Vegas has got a lot of pride on their group, and they've got a lot of experience in a short period of time they've been in the league. They've been in a lot of big games, and they answered the bell tonight. And the Oilers just weren't on top of their game defensively. They had 3 rush goals scored against them. They had opportunity early in the hockey game with some 2-on-1s that they historically capitalized on, but didn't tonight. And they were just overall flat collectively. And, as is the case in NHL playoff hockey, they've got to have a response now. And Vegas answered, and now the Oilers have to respond on Wednesday night.
Struds, pretty dramatic drop-off, hey, buddy?
Oh, a big change. And, much like Mac, I was looking forward to a game that we saw on game 2. But, I think that, just at a very basic level, I'm always watching the defensive play of either team. And I thought the Oilers today were really guilty of not playing between their man and the net. And whether that's off the rush, or we're talking about a play out of the corner, the first goal, or we're talking about White Cloud's, play at kind of an exchange high at the blue line. 2 guys don't really communicate. No one's sagging off, and boom, all of a sudden this guy kind of gets a breakaway off the blue line. So, things that I think are pretty generic, and you can, or to contain. And, that's a hard thing to happen, because I didn't think that, like, Vegas was good, but I think the Oilers kind of let them be really good, which you can't do when maybe your big guns aren't firing like they weren't tonight.
Tough end to the first period, though, too, Mac, in that, you're in a 1-1 game and you're not playing your best, but you're still right there. Bit of a letdown there. Nugent Hopkins lost in no man's land on a back check. He worked hard in back check, just maybe a little bit too far. That gives Vegas possession, some time in the offensive zone. It ends up in the back of the net, and then Evander Kane takes the penalty to end the first period. That first just really ended with a thud, Craig. That really takes the wind out of your sails, I would think.
Well, the coaches have no shortage of material. They're going to run out of time tomorrow with their ability to identify things in areas of their game that they need to correct. And, I really believe, and I've said this throughout the playoffs, that the Oilers, I believe, right now are ready to win. And, they have been on the dial in terms of the pressure and the intensity and the control of the games that they've had to this point. And they're going to have to prove that again on Wednesday night. But, to Strud's point, there were a lot of pretty elementary plays that should have been defended. The X play that you talked about, where Fogle and Nurse duplicated their coverage, and White Cloud was able to come in on a semi-breakaway, and then we couldn't get the save from Stewart, who's been really good throughout the playoffs so far. So there's, as a coach, I always believe that it's easier. I'd rather lose a game handily than lose a game 3-2 in overtime, because it just gathers the attention of the group that much more, that they have to be attentive to try and really motivated to try and change the overall outcome, because they were really flat top to bottom.
Yeah, and so Sean, I just want to jump in and talk about that second goal, and then Kane's penalty. There was no call at the end, and at just before the goal was scored. I think we're talking about when Eichel kind of high sticks Yamamoto, then knocks down Bukestad. And I get you're trying to check to see if your teeth are all there. I think in that moment, understand where you're at. It's the last couple of minutes of the period. You've got to just hustle back as hard as you can, because Eichel jumps up, right? He jumps up in the play, and ultimately he's the one who kind of creates that goal. And I get it. You're worried about your teeth, but, teeth can be replaced in that moment. It's really important for them to get back there as quick as you can, and not worried about checking your teeth and taking your glove off. And then, King gets out there, and I understand what he's trying to accomplish, but he kind of goes up high and cross checks a player at the end of the period. Everyone's watching. Everyone, all four, two linesmen and two refs are all watching you. They're looking for you to go and take a run at that guy. And he does. So can you keep your stick down, just kind of maybe follows you with the body? You can have the same response, but without taking the penalty. So, just those little details, just kind of out of sorts. And, one of them on their own isn't maybe going to kill you, but when you kind of line them all up and stack them together, you get a 5-1 loss.
Yeah, Vander Kane. I mean, it's funny. It's kind of the risk reward of a player that plays right on the edge.
Right.
And so last game, you see the benefit of that, where he's there and he's sticking up for his teammates and he's crawling into the other team's kitchen and he's menacing, right? And post game, his clips that are going viral, all those things. But that gets you attention. And so quite often, Mac, I mean, you're not necessarily going to get the benefit of the doubt if you're a Vander Kane. And he goes into that situation pretty aggressive. I always notice with Kane too, you guys,
Hello.
he
Yeah,
always hits with two hands on his stick.
People recall when
And
we
he always
started this
leads with his
podcast,
stick in
we
front of
said that
him.
we
And
are
quite
not
often it
going
gets
to
up a
hide
little
behind
bit
the
high.
fact
And that was an example
doing a lot
of a
of this
situation like that.
ourselves,
But
and
Craig, a player that
technically
plays right
sometimes
on the
it might be a
line,
little bit of a
but that the
challenge.
refs are also watching.
Well, it's tough to ride that line day in and day out, game in, game out. I mean, you're going to find yourself on the opposite side of the line from time to time. And I mean, I really appreciate what he brings to the Oilers in terms of that toughness and accountability and looking the opponent in the eye. And I mean, he's a guy that's, constantly pissing the opponent off. And there's not enough of that in my mind in today's game. But he's a guy that, I mean, he's playing the game hard, physical brand of hockey, but there also is the accountability to know the situation that you're in and try and keep yourself out of taking that penalty at the end of the period. But, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can point to tonight that unraveled the Oilers tonight, and they'll have their hands full tomorrow, the coaches going over.
We'll get to the Weiss Johnson soundbox really quick here. I'm just going to play a short little clip from Connor McDavid because it was Jason Gregor asking him the question after the game about, getting away from their game plan and what happened. And McDavid summed it up in about 4 seconds.
Seemed to kind of snowball 5-on-5.
Yeah, obviously not a lot to like about tonight.
Obviously not a lot to like about it. That was it. I mean, and he was better. We asked him more questions and he elaborated, but Jay Woodcroft was the exact same after the game. Just said, not good enough, not close to being good enough. So, Craig, Struds, if you look at the overall body of work here through 3 games, this is 2 games where they haven't brought the stuff that they want to bring. First game, they graded it at like a C+, C- type of game. Tonight, worse, not even close. So, where's your level of concern, Struds, about 2 out of 3 games, a team not having its proper stuff?
Yeah, it is, especially when you're already into the second round, and this team has had some success already last year, right? Going 3 rounds deep. But I think we also have to kind of at least, look at what Vegas has done. They're a pretty good team. They're pretty big, they're pretty strong, and they're also doing some pretty good things. And, when they get up on the rush and they attack the Oilers, I think sometimes the Oilers D and every D, man, it's hard to kind of identify which guy is yours and trying to sort it out. Even coming out of the corner like Marchessault's goal, I think they're the center and the D man kind of didn't understand or didn't talk about whose guy was who. So they play fast and they get pucks to the net fast, and that's hard. And you contrast that to the Kings, who, for large stretches of the game were just kind of in the neutral zone, just waiting for the Oilers to break it out. So you have nothing but time. As a guy that was challenged handling the puck, I really appreciated that type of a game. I could make plays, maybe not under pressure. So I think that, for the Oilers, it is disappointing, but I think we'll see a better game from them in game 4. And then you got to kind of settle in quickly because, it becomes a best of 3 if they win. And, having a game like you did in game 1 of grade 3 makes it pretty tough, Mac, to continue on.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the game 2 was so great that you quickly, forgot about game 1 where it was a little bit loose, a little bit sloppy. You can see that happening as the team comes out of California. They have a couple days off in California, so that was more understandable than tonight. I was surprised tonight, but to your point, Strudge, I mean, teams are tough at this time of year. I mean, you're facing a pretty formidable opponent in Las Vegas, and you better bring your right stuff. And I mean, you see the difficulties Toronto's having. There's so many things that you have to have go right for you at this time of year, and so many things that you have to be detailed in your game to get the result that you want, because the opposition is tough, and I'm pretty confident the Oilers will be able to bounce back tomorrow. But I always, Connor, he hates to be in that situation at the end where he's got to, there's this mentality, I think, that you're expected to bare your soul after every loss to the media, when you don't play well, and you've got to go out there and you've got to feel shame. And I'm sure that grades on those guys, because time and time again they've been able to bounce back, and yet you've got to answer all these very disappointing questions on the effort that you had. So I mean, I always enjoy watching him be interviewed after the game as much as I know he hates it.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm right in the middle of those scrums. The one thing I'll say, Craig, is that he's really taken those availabilities to a different level this year. He's been really good. And in fact, I played a short little clip from him because I thought it was poignant. But he was really good as that availability continued, and he did make some good points about what went wrong for them tonight. And, McDavid shows up to those media availabilities one way or another. He never shuts us down, and he was good tonight. One more for you, Mac, before we let you go.
Yeah.
You've been in the situation where you have to make a call on your goaltending. And I can imagine, unless you've been in that scenario, having to actually make that call, I can't imagine what it's like. So here they are, Stuart Skinner. He's 10 goals here in a couple of the losses. Jack Campbell has come on and played fairly well in both of his relief appearances. They're clearly targeting Skinner's glove. So what do you think the right call is to make? So I'll just put you on the spot, the right call to make for next game. But how difficult is it for a head coach when you have to consider going away from the guy that got you there?
Well, I would say Skinner for me all day long the next game. I feel like he gives us our best chance, and Jay's been in that position before, and he's gone back to Skinner, and it's worked. So I think there's comfort in that for him and the coaching staff. But difficult situation. I mean, with Aiden Hill going in there and playing as well as he did tonight, that might pose a bigger question or a bigger problem in the net than the Oiler net. That he's gone in there because he's a pretty good goalie, and he's going to come in there with a lot of confidence, and he looked very strong in the net tonight. So I think he might be a bigger problem than figuring out who the Oilers are going to put in there. But I would not hesitate to put Skinner back in the net.
But safe to say those are tough situations when you even have to consider it. And I don't know if it's obvious to a coach. Like, would it be obvious to Jay Woodcroft tonight when you got to make these decisions, or do you pine over it? Are they tough calls?
No, it's an inexact science for sure. It's a feel, and he wanted to change the momentum of the game. I think that, Stuart didn't have his best stuff tonight, but I mean, he wasn't alone. Let's put it that way. And, I'd be hesitant to lay it at the feet of Stuart Skinner. He's played well, and I wouldn't have any problem going back with him. But I mean, I always felt as a coach that, mediocre to poor goaltending is subtle. And, you find yourself as a coach analyzing the goals. Could he have had it? Should he have been over there? And I always felt if you have to ask the question, you know the answer, because, good goaltending is obvious. And you're not asking those questions when you get outstanding and stellar goaltending. And sometimes mediocre goaltending is subtle, but Stuart's gotten us this far, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't go back with him. How about you, Struds?
I made the comment after game one. I said that the team didn't play well in front of him, so I don't think it's fair to say it's all him. So I'd come back with him, in game two, and I'd say the same thing tonight. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, look at all the goal. Well, I guess it's only 4 goals, but the first goal, yeah, maybe I guess walking out of the corner, but his center D didn't really help him out too much. The couple of rush goals, maybe White Clouds, I guess, but probably shouldn't have that chance in the first place. So I'm a little bit easier on the goaltenders than most, because I always look at what happened 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds before that led to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's, to put it always on the goalie. I mean, there's some nights where the goalie's having an off night. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know that Stu had a huge night like that night tonight. I think his team was loose in front of him. So I'd put him back in there. And I'd be blown away if the team doesn't come back to better effort in game 4. And Stu is, just fine. So I've been saying they're going to need Jack Campbell all year. Just they're going to need him. And they did need him in the series previous for a very important 2 periods. But I don't think now is the time when they need him. So I'd be pretty. I don't think I would change. I know I would go back to Skinner, because I said the same thing in game 1.
That might have been the kiss of death for Stu, though. Mac, you don't know this, but all year on the podcast, Struds has been guessing dead wrong on the goalies. Brilliant analyst, great hockey mind. He has yet to figure out Jay Woodcroft and how he handles his goalies yet. He has yet to guess right, I think, for an entire season on which goalie it was time to go with.
No clue. No, a tip that I had to send to this guy.
Into Schwartzy. You got to tap into Schwartzy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
No, I can't run my kids U9 hockey goalies. How can I guess what an NHL guy's going to do?
No kidding. Right on. Mac, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Will you come back again sometime in the playoffs?
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, always great to check in with Mac T. You had him, Struddy. What? I know the players appreciated the way he handled them in the room. I talked to a lot of different guys that played for him and appreciated the upfront honesty from a guy like Mac T.
And just subtle, and not a huge yeller. Just want to explain things, get his point across. One of my regrets, I only had him for 1 year. He and Charlie Huddy and Billy Moores. I wish I would have had him for longer, but just didn't work out. The team was in transition, so. I really enjoyed it. And when you talk to a guy who is a player and a coach, it's a different perspective than just a player, right? As a player, you're kind of worried about your partner, maybe the line you play with quite a bit or whatever. But as a coach, you're trying to mesh it all together. So he has a bit of both sides. So a lot of hockey information going around in that helmetless head of his.
All right, we're going to get back to the Weiss Johnson sound box. 45 years in the business, so if you need a new furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or any of those things serviced, Weiss Johnson is the place to go. Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, and plumbing services. You can give them a call, 780-463-3096. All right, let's check in with Jay Woodcroft, the head coach, post-game. I can't remember now which clip I pulled. Hang on one sec here.
And was Stewart pulled?
Okay, so this is Jim Matheson. We were just talking about the goaltenders. Jim Matheson questioning Jay Woodcroft on why Skinner was pulled.
And was Stewart pulled as kind of like a mercy pull because the team was not playing very well?
I wouldn't characterize it like that. I'd characterize it as, we're at the point in the game we're trying to slow the game down a little bit, change a little bit of the momentum. We win as a team and we don't win as a team. This isn't on any one individual. I keep coming back to it, but
yeah. So he harped on that a few different times. That to me says they weren't thrilled with Skinner's play, right? Matty said, was it a mercy pull? And no, I wouldn't characterize it like that. Listen, I thought he had a bit of a tough night. I thought the glove was exposed and it's gotten a little bit leaky here. So it's up to Skinner if he gets another opportunity to get back in there and try and bounce back.
But I'll challenge you a little bit on that.
Sure,
so
yeah.
Which ones are you talking about? Are you talking about the
I didn't like the White Cloud goal. I mean, just beat him.
So
flat out beat him.
So 2 players, the puck is at the blue line, and 2 Oiler players, they don't play it well. No one folds under, and the guy gets a breakaway from there. That should not happen.
Yeah, but Struz, he shot from, a breakaway that's loose. He was coming in off the right side and just beat him clean with a shot from distance, didn't he?
He didn't have time. And then you want to talk about the Eichel goal. Bouchard, unfortunately, falls down trying to deal with Eichel's pressure, speed. And that was another one that I believe was just under the glove, if I remember correctly, on a 2 on 2-on-1, maybe a 2.5-on-1. Like that's another one where, both those plays probably shouldn't have happened. right? So I'm hesitant to put it at the foot of the goaltender.
Well, I don't think that's what I'm doing. I mean,
No, but
I think
Yeah,
I think what I'm saying is that the coach was given the opportunity to say this wasn't about Skinner tonight. This was the whole group. Like he had the opportunity to say this wasn't about Stewart. This was about us, and we need to be better for him, and we need to. Yeah. And he didn't. He said, we win it as a team, we lose as a team. He didn't take that almost olive branch from Matty, and I don't disagree, Struds. I think they're picking on his glove a little bit, and I know that there are mistakes made that are led to chances. I'm not suggesting that there weren't other mistakes on these goals, but I think he's getting beat clean by some shots, and he did make some good saves in this game too. But I don't think this was his best game. I don't think he'd be thrilled with this game.
No, but I think if you're in order of issues, I would suggest that the defensive play by the Oilers was far the bigger issue than Skinner's play, because he did make some pretty good saves. But the ones they had were point blank chances, right? The two I'm talking about are the Eichel and the Whitecloud. Those are grade A chances. And I would suggest in the first, 30 minutes of the game that it was probably like 10-2, 10-3 in really good chances against Vegas for the Oilers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There is no doubt the Oilers somehow tonight in an important game, a momentum shifter in a series. They came out flat, and they got the first goal, so I shouldn't say they came out flat. What I should say is that they didn't come out with the requisite consistency and work ethic that they needed. I mean, McDavid didn't want to say that they got outworked, but the head coach talked about being outbattled, and I'm not sure there's much difference between being outworked and outbattled. They weren't skating hard enough. They weren't on it. How about the goal that was called back? How about Draisaitl's defensive coverage on that one that was called back?
Yeah, well, let's okay. Let's get into that one. So, I think Draisaitl was thinking that Bouchard might fold underneath and help him. So, Draisaitl allows the player to get the inside position, and then Bouchard doesn't come over to greet the guy, and then the goal gets disallowed for goal interference. Which whether I don't know if that's a big decision or not, but anyways, it happens. Then the next shift, Bouchard allows the player to get the inside position on him as well. And the backdoor tap in. So, it's
shared blame.
It was just one of those nights where the Oilers were challenged to really make hard and quick decisions defensively, and they weren't able to get it done. Because if you go through kind of the rush goals, so we're talking the Eichel pass, so the high stick at the end of the first period that wasn't called, but again you got to just regroup. So that's a rush goal. We'll talk about the Eichel 2-on-1 where Bouchard falls. We can talk about the Bouchard one again, backdoor. We could also talk about the one that was disallowed. So that's really 4 out of 6. I know it's only 5 goals, but out of 6 goals, they were off the rush that, quite frankly, I would call defendable, right? And that's something you have to realize is that this team likes to get up and go off the transition or turnovers.
For sure. I think that's a great summation of what went wrong. Okay, that was the breakdown. Takeaways we're going to get to right now, and that is brought to you by our good friends over at Sherwood Buick GMC, the big, beautiful dealership just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. If you're looking for a truck, a car, an SUV, whether it be new or used, head right to Sherwood Buick GMC because, first of all, they have stock, so they have the vehicle that you're going to be looking for. They make the buying process extremely streamlined and easy. They're respectful of your time. They don't leave you waiting around. And the financing process is very easy as well. So great staff, great selection, great stock, beautiful dealership. That's Sherwood Buick GMC on the way into Sherwood Park. Okay, Struddy, we're going to shift gears because the draft lottery rolled a little bit earlier on tonight. And the Chicago Blackhawks, winners of the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, winning the draft lottery and bumping. What's your initial reaction? Did you watch it? And what's your thought process on Bedard heading to Chicago?
I did watch it. I think it's always interesting, especially when you're talking about a player like Connor Bedard. No disrespect to some other first rounders, but this guy is one of those guys that you're going to be interested to see where he plays. I think long term it's probably good for him and the league. Short term, I think it's very bad for Connor Bedard. I was looking at all the various teams that could had a chance to get him, and Chicago has the most, or let me say it, they have the least amount of talent currently on their roster,
Right.
of all the teams, whether it was Columbus or Detroit or even Anaheim, Philly, all these teams, even Arizona, I believe has more talent on their lineup than they do now. Now that can change with some contracts and stuff, but I believe that he is going to be like a freedom fighter for the first number of years as he has to allow the team to grow around him. But as of tonight, his best two line mates are probably a rookie in Lucas Reichel and Antasiu. Now I know that can change. Like I'm not delusional, but they're not going to go out and sign guys to 6-7 year contracts just to play with them. They got to build this thing the right way. So short term, I think it could be very difficult for he and the Blackhawks, but I think long term, hopefully that GM can figure it out with so many young draft picks and picks coming up. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about the draft picks, right? So a couple in the first round, 4 in the second round, 2 in the third round. Next year, they've got 2 more in the first round. Mm-hmm. They've got 6 first round picks in the next 3 years, and they got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They got 14 picks in the top 2 rounds. So, I mean, if a scouting staff has its, shit together, you can really set your organization up nicely. But to your point about the short term here, I mean, I think about when Taylor Hall came into the league and Jordan Eberle and those guys all came in together. And I think about the need for there to be veteran presence to guide and light the way. Now there's different types of veteran presence. There's guys who have been around, who are good, honest, solid locker room guys who know the right way to do things, and we're going to help you get your first nice suit and give you a place to stay and look after you. There's that.
Right.
And then there's guys who know what it's like to be a number one center and understand that pressure and who have done that before, and guys who can, insulate someone like Connor Bedard from the every night pressure of having to produce. And that would be my biggest concern about this player, who I think his game will translate to the NHL level, but if it doesn't right away, that should be okay. But in this situation in Chicago, if it ain't going to be him, who's it going to be? You need to insulate your young star offensive forwards with other accomplished offensive players, Struddy.
I don't think they have a top 6 forward right now.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, on their roster. I mean, now we can, I believe the young players I talked about, Lucas Reichel, pretty good young player, but are you going to put those two guys together out there as your 1-2? And it's just, it's going to take, you're going to burn through his first 3 years before really anything, I think, really gets going. But in the meantime, you got to help him out by bringing some veterans in. And what does that look like? Who are these guys you're going to bring in? Are they going to want to play on 1, 2, and 3 year contracts to do it? Do you trade some of your draft picks to maybe bring guys in that are, maybe people are looking to move on from whoever, but you don't want to take on dumpster fires because you're trying to build something, right? So you have Seth Jones right now. You have Seth Jones and Connor Bedard.
Man.
So
is Johnson still under contract, isn't he? I'm just checking right now. Yeah.
Okay. So Tyler Johnson,
third line player, right?
You probably have, who else you got? So Anthony was unrestricted. You've got Jason Dickinson, probably third liner at this point. Some other, youngish players, but none that I don't think are massively moving the roster right now. It's who are your goaltenders? This was probably the worst team you could be picked short term. Columbus, it's drop and play between Goudreau and Laine. Let's go. We're going to all get 100 points, right? That's not here. So it's the way it is. I don't really, Now a lot can change. I know you can trade draft picks and stuff like that, but you need 5 top 6 forwards. 5.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1.
Yeah.
That's a long road. Like, this team is a long ways away.
The other thing about Bedard, Struds, like, he's a consensus number 1, and rightfully so. And, people want to use the generational tag. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I see a player who is a brilliant offensive player at the level that he's playing at right now. But I also see a player who is about to step into a league where it's going to get, 30% faster, 25% faster, whatever the number is. You're going to have less time and space. Toe drags don't work in the NHL, right? So he's going to have to learn different ways to create offense at the NHL level, just like he had to learn in junior. And I guess what I'm saying is that if his game doesn't translate right away and he's not ready to just score 35 goals his first year, that should be perfectly fine. But then you got to take the pressure off by having some other guys around you. Like, how do you see his game translating to the NHL level from what you've seen?
Well, I was here when Eberle and Hall came in, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, how good can these guys be? They were good. Offensively, they were really good. I remember the first day of camp, Jordan Eberle skated around me like I was standing still. And I'm like, okay, this will probably be my last year. But, don't ever do that again. Make me look bad. So, no, I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. He could have done it anytime he wanted. So they had to figure it out. And they got to figure out how to play and where to put the puck. And they had some help. Sean Horkoff, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he was really good for those guys. And he was their number 1 center. Now, he played, if I remember correctly, quite a bit with those 2 guys on the line. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. He was a defensive conscious on that line. Bedard could go out and score. He could get, we talked to John Paddock today, their coach, and I believe GM of the Pats. He thinks maybe 30 and 30. Wow, that's great. He can get 30 and 30, but they're probably still going to be last next year. You know what I mean? Like, just because there's not the talent around there. Like, I don't see who's going to support him. And let's say he goes to Detroit, let's say, and that there's a young defenseman there. There's Dylan Larkin, who's probably for now your number 1 center, and then Connor Bedard's your second line center. So Dylan is going up against Connor and Nathan McKinnon and Patterson out of Vancouver. All these guys. Who's doing that for him? Who's doing that for Connor Bedard? And this isn't because I'm not saying this because I think that's a shelter Bedard or anything, but it's nice not every night to have to go and play against those guys, right? And because there's not a lot of support around him, So the first time they play LA, do you think Deneau and Kopitar are going to be looking forward to this challenge of playing this young guy? Not that there's animosity or anything, but it's just hard. So I want to see him flourish. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. This was the worst team short term he could go to. The worst team. Now, a lot can change in the offseason. They can trade draft picks for players, but they're also thinking they don't want to trade these picks for a lot of 27-year-olds. They want people that can grow with this young guy, Connor Bedard. So maybe there'll be some contracts they can take on that makes sense. Like I'll give an example, Seattle picking up Oliver Bjorkstrand. I've always liked this player, and I think they got him, I want to say, Schauger, like a 3rd and a 5th. I might be wrong, somewhere in there. But that's a player that makes sense. So how do you go about building around a player that is this good when you have currently nothing that was on your team this year, right? And then anyone who comes in, they're all going to be 19, 20, 21. They have some young D-man that I've followed, and I like, what's his name? Del Mastro, seen him play in the World Juniors. I like him, but he's not a stud next year. To play beside Seth Jones. They have Korchinski, another guy I've watched play. I like him too. He's not a stud next year, probably, right? You got to let these guys grow and mature. So
let me ask you this, Struds. Do you think that they need to immediately, because of this, go and add some guys that maybe put them in a different place in their rebuild, right? Like if a traditional rebuild would be, might not be going to sign these guys, but do you need to expedite the process because you have to put some players next to him that give him a fighting chance of developing properly? Mm-hmm. Give you a fighting chance of being able to, give someone else tougher matchups. It's not just all about him and the top pairing defenseman every single night. Go get deals done that you wouldn't have gone to do. Or can you say, we'll be what we'll be this year, draft high for one more year, and then we'll really go pedal to the metal? You can't do that, can you?
Well, does it make sense? Like, does it make sense to go out and sign? You could have got him. What's the little guy? Perron. Would that have been a guy, like an example? The Detroit went and did it. And hardworking player. Good pro. All that. That's probably a guy that makes sense if he's 28. If he's 33 to a 5-year deal, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense because they're probably thinking after this next 3 drafts. They'll have filled back the cupboards. They'll have talent, in here. Maybe that helps, right? Maybe that helps at all. Can you do it internally? Can you go talk to Jonathan Toews? And I know that it sounded like he wasn't coming back, but is there any way this changes? Does it change that conversation, right? Even though I know it seemed like they walked him to the door that last game. Does this change it? Can he get Toews back in there to be the leader of the next guy or probable captain of the Hawks? So, I think everything's on the table, right? You got to figure out what you can do, but trading a first rounder for a 28-year-old center to me makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Fascinating to watch him come into the league next year and see what kind of numbers he can push. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And the NHL will be happy to have him in a significant market like that.
Huge.
Yeah, big for the league, especially if he can make an early splash. Okay, good job tonight, Struddy. I noticed, by the way, are there new headphones, or did you do something different there, or
no,
what do you got?
I got new ones. Yeah, I got new ones. I went and splurged, so they're pretty stylish. I'm pretty happy with what they're doing.
Are they? Like, they're still coming kind of out sort of sideways from your head still, aren't they?
That's what fits my ears. That's what the lady at Shoppers Drug Mart said. You're a very good looking man, and you need to have properly placed earbuds for those ears.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, buddy. Good stuff. This was a late one. Thanks for hanging in, and we'll check in after game number 4. Oilers in a tight one. What do you think?
Love it.
They going to bring the right stuff? Are they going to show up with the right stuff? Are you calling it now?
I do. Yeah, they will. They have to. They have to, or the series becomes very difficult. But I think they'll come much better effort. They've showed us they've done it already, right? From game 1 to game 2.
Yeah. All right, Struds. Have a good night, pal.
Bonne nuit.
Bon nuit. All right, thank you for your downloads and your subscriptions. We appreciate you joining us here on Got Your Back. And a big thanks, as always, to our title sponsor, Mr. Dirk. Of course, our other core sponsors, DLR Vinyl Products, Sherwood Buick GMC, and Weiss Johnson as well. And hey, big thanks to Mac T. How great was that having him on with Struds? Hopefully we'll have Mac T again here on Got Your Back. Take care, folks. Talk soon.